This is Live Today TV. I'm Randy Robinson, and today I have Dr. Ken Hutcherson, pastor in Seattle, Washington, and former NFL pro football player for the Cowboys, Chargers. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys and Chargers?
And finished for the Seattle Seahawks.
And the Seahawks. I knew there was a third team in there. Can't forget the Seahawks, even though they are way up there. Thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure, bro.
Appreciate your time. And I'm going to jump into a hot topic.
Sure.
And I want to talk about some of the football, and I know that's a part of all that, and we'll finish with what you're doing right now. But I don't want to tell everybody how old I am, but suffice to say, when I grew up here in Texas, of course my dad, had made a stand during the '60s civil rights movement, wouldn't allow segregation in his crusades, even though that irritated some churches down there.
Yeah.
His response was to put all the African Americans right in the middle, in the front, just to rub it in their
That's
eyes.
A man, bro.
Yeah, right.
That's
So he stood up.
Man of courage.
I did not grow up with overt, at least, racism. Definitely not in my home, and not a whole lot, I don't think, in my school. If it was there, I was not attuned to it. You, however, you grew up in Alabama, Anderson County, is that right?
Anniston,
Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Anniston, Alabama, where there was tons of racism.
Well, most people don't know when I was young, I didn't like Dr. Martin Luther King. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I mean, I hated him. I thought he was a weakling. I thought he was a sellout because he was telling all the young people at that time that, not to fight back, and if you get hit, to take it. No. And I wasn't into that.
No.
And I mean, I'm a young kid. And we had the first Freedom Bus come through our hometown and was burned in Anniston, Alabama, my hometown. So, I mean, I was right in the thick of hatred.
But you felt it.
Oh, bro, I mean, I lived it. I didn't just feel it. I lived it.
Give me some examples of how that looked.
The most difficult thing is going to the store and having to wait in line till all the white people were served, or going to a restaurant and you had to come through the back door or the back window most of the time to be served. Colored water fountains, had a white water fountains, had colored water fountains. I lived that. It's not something I read about in the book.
Yeah.
3 bathrooms, always.
Male, female, colored?
White females, white males, colored. So you had to knock on the door if you were colored to find out if someone of the opposite sex was in there, before you walked in.
Yeah.
Always riding on the back of the bus. I mean, there was no such thing. I mean, riding on the front of a bus, what in the world was that? This was before integration was in my hometown. So to always hold your head down when you walking down the street in town and you meet some white person.
Did you always hold your head down?
I know, that was the problem. That's why I got in so much trouble. Stepping off the sidewalk and holding your head down and letting white people walk by. That was all in my lifetime. So to be looked at as less than a person, animals was taken care of better than you would be if it was left up to white people. Yeah. Secondhand books. I don't think I ever saw a new book in school until I went to an integrated school. I mean, you just wouldn't have it. Secondhand everything. I mean, everything in aspect from clothes, books, education, rides, cars, you name it.
So what did this do to you? Make you hate white people?
Oh, it made me literally hate white people. I mean, I'm reading. I did a lot of reading when I was a young boy. I spent a lot of time alone. I had a bunch of uncles, aunts and one uncle. And it was my opportunity to read and study. And now, because the more I read, the more I studied, because we didn't have TV in the house for years and years and years. To see how whites was being treated, and seeing how blacks was being treated, seeing all the pictures of white people in magazines, not seeing any blacks, because you just didn't exist, made me just, I grew with such a hatred And I had made a commitment. And when I was a young boy, my uncle took me out in the back of the house one day. And he was a football player, and I thought, man, he's going to teach me how to play football. And he said, get up there, and I want you to stand up there. It's okay, man, let's go. He go, bam! Man, he hit me, and I went flying in the dirt and gravel. I'm crying. He goes, shut up. Get back up there. Boom. Here I go flying again. 3 or 4 times, man, he just rocked me, man. I mean, just knocked me down. I'm bleeding. I'm all scraped up. And he grabbed me and says, walk over here. He says, shut up. He says, you got to be tough to make it in this world. So you got 3 things against you. 1, you was born in America. 2, you was born in Alabama. And 3, you was born black. And there's no one in the world that you can be equal with if they're white, and you'll get the same opportunity. Mm-hmm. You got to set your mind right now to be at least 3 times better than any white person if you're going to succeed. And if you look at the great athletes today that are black athletes, they're not just good. They are awesome to get the publicity they get even to this day. They're not regular good black players. Man, Hank Aaron. You look at Jordan. You look at the baseball players today, Hank Aaron and others, Bonds. They're not just better players. I mean, they're double and triple time better than any other players on the team.
Even to this day?
Even to this very day.
I know a particular African-American quarterback on my fantasy team that could be a little better.
Well, you know how that is, brother. You shouldn't have picked the brother.
Yeah, well, he's had some good years. Anyway. But
so you look at the things that my uncle taught me at that time.
Yeah.
And I set in my mind, that would be a white person wouldn't beat me in anything. Nothing. And the number one thing I decided was, if I beat you physically, then the white person's gonna say, look, he was made that way. He's, born and raised in Africa. He's got the bone structure. He's got the muscle structure. He can do this. All this.
We've heard that before.
You heard that.
Yeah.
And I said, well, no one's gonna beat me academically either. So I set my mind to never have to worry about any white guy beating me in grades.
Yeah.
And I would spend hours and hours, studying. And studying came easy with me. God gave me a phenomenal mind, but that was a commitment that I made years when I was young.
Yeah, which is a good commitment to make for anyone to succeed and excel. And you also mentioned to me before that you played football because that was the only place you could hit white people and not get in trouble, right? Well,
in Alabama, I lettered in 4 sports every year in high school. And but I noticed something about football that I couldn't do in the other sports.
Yeah.
And that is, I could hit a white guy and hurt him, and they'll pick you up and pat you on the back. And I go, you know what, man? This is a sport for me. You can hurt white people legally and get away with it.
So at some point that had to start going away, I would think. So you go to college?
No.
You're an athlete?
I'm still in high school.
I know, but when you did go to college, now they got to just accept you for who you are, right?
Oh, no. Oh, it gets worse after I leave high school, man. I was... in high school, I was, All-American. And so I get these opportunities to go to these different schools. I had just become a Christian my senior year in high school. My senior year, after I became a Christian, wasn't safe for me to go to school. I could not walk to school. The school had set up a ride for me. They would pick me up in the morning. They would take me to school. They would take me to practice. Then I would leave practice, get picked up and brought home. And I'd get out the car and walk in my door. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much my whole senior year. Because after I became a Christian even, blacks wouldn't have anything to do with me because I wouldn't fight anymore. I mean, my junior year, man, we kind of beat up the parade of the homecoming. And, kind of turned over floats and different things. And I had to sneak.
Troublemaker.
Yeah, big trouble. But I had to sneak in and out because I was on the football team and I was supposed to be a leader. Right. And so here I am as a senior, come to know Christ. Blacks are mad at me because I don't want to be white people anymore.
Yeah.
And there are whites mad at me because I'm black and have hurt them for years.
Well, let me ask you this. You say you became a Christian, and before you didn't like Dr. Martin Luther King.
Right.
Did you start to come around? Did you start to agree with some of the things he was doing?
What I did is I realized where he was standing and what he was standing on, and that was the Bible. And so I go, man, all these years I missed what he stood for. And then all of a sudden, look who I am. I ended up going into college and knowing that God had called me to be a preacher, you know.
When you got in college, you told me before that they thought you were white.
Yeah.
Before they met you.
Oh, yeah. The only one I knew was the coach and the dean of men that, that I was black, because they were getting all this publicity about this athlete, the academic, athlete, all blue chip. You just don't say that about black people in those days. And so they had got the news that I turned down these other schools to come, but they didn't know why I turned down school. It was because of prayer. I was going, Lord, I'm getting sick and tired of talking to all these schools. At that time, I was on my own. I was living with people I could, my aunts and different friends, because my mom had moved away to Detroit to get a better job and get work. And I wasn't going to move to Detroit, man. I would rather do it on my own. So I've been on my own since I was 15. And so finishing school, finishing with good grades at that younger age, because I was just sold out to never be a failure. And so I get to college with all these accolades and all these people, and they put my name in the paper. And the coaching staff didn't tell them I was black. The men didn't tell them I was black. So I report in for football for the first day, right? Because I go, God, you got to help me pick the team. I said, I'm sick and tired of all these teams calling and talking to them. The first team I hear tomorrow, whichever it is, that's why I know you want me to go to school. And that's where I'm going. Well, the first school I heard from was Livingston. And so I went. Bro, I'm going to tell you, Livingston was so far back in the woods, you had to go towards town to go hunting. Animals didn't live that deep in the woods, man. And it was certainly not a good place for blacks in those areas. And I remember walking on, I'm thinking, God, why in the world? I said, but I prayed. This is the place for me. And I wish we had time to talk about how I got there. Unbelievable. So I walk in to register. And they go name. And I go, Ken Hutcherson. The registrar stops and looks up at me and go, what? I says, what? You asked me my name. My name is Ken Hutcherson. I said, no, it's not. I said, man, my name's been Ken Hutcherson all my life. He gets up from the table, leaves, and goes and get the dean of men.
Oh, wow.
And said, this guy down here is black, pretend like he's Ken Hutcherson. He said, he is. And come down, and the town finds out about it. And they go crazy because they give me all this publicity.
Yeah.
They've talked about how great athlete, how great it is to get this type of quality of person.
Nobody had mentioned that you were black.
And no one mentioned I was black. So all of a sudden, I'm a big inspiration to all of the blacks in the area. Most of the blacks hadn't signed up to vote. They was, being afraid to come out. No one but one or two of us stayed on campus because it was just so dangerous. They would go home at night. So there was commuting students. And here I am coming down here to the school, and I got to stay on campus and a couple other guys. So we had to stick together because they knew that they wanted to hurt me. They knew that they wanted to get rid of me because I was encouraging other blacks in the town and in the city. And I would come home after practice to my room, and there was notes stuck on the door. There would be a knife with a note stuck on my door. It said, dear nigger, we don't want your kind down here, and if we catch you out at night, we're going to kill you.
Wow.
We're going to make sure you get home. This is my freshman year, bro.
So how many years you stay there?
I stayed that whole 4 years.
All 4 years.
Because that's what God said. He called me.
Any of that start to turn around?
Oh, I changed the whole place. You're all American. You start having scouts come down. Yeah. Then you start talking about having this kid drafted from the school, okay? That changed a lot of hearts.
Good.
I got my number, retired. They give the Ken Hutcherson Award away. But I'm going to give you real prejudice, man. It's hard to get rid of if you don't meet Christ.
You were drafted into the NFL?
Drafted in the NFL after my senior year. And I am the only athlete ever drafted out of Livingston first and the last was me.
So far, we can still hope, maybe.
So far, we can still hope.
Okay.
Still hope.
And who drafted you?
Dallas.
Cowboys drafted you.
Came right here.
What round? Do you remember?
Fourth round.
Fourth round. That's pretty good for a defensive man, especially. So you come play for the Cowboys.
Coach Landry.
In 1974. And by then, racism was a thing of the past.
Yeah, I guess, but it wasn't in my lifestyle. When I came here, I came drafted as a linebacker. Mm-hmm. And in college, I mean, it was almost like a man playing with boys, at times. And I knew I was going to start when I got to Dallas. I mean, I wasn't worried about it. At the time, Leroy Jordan was the middle linebacker, and it was perfect time for me because he was talking about retiring. Mm-hmm. So it was going to be a perfect position. Well, the one thing in the 1970s, bro, that many people have forgotten, there were certain positions blacks couldn't play. Mm-hmm. They couldn't play center, they couldn't play middle linebacker, and they couldn't play quarterbacks because they call them thinking positions. Mm-hmm. And guess what? I'm in Dallas, getting ready to take over a great linebacker position, and it's a middle linebacker.
Middle linebacker. Yeah.
And ownership and player personnel and citizens of Dallas was not going to put up with it.
Even in '74, which surprised me because I was very small. I wasn't even in grade school yet in '74, but here now, and I,
And Thomas Henderson, I don't know if you ever heard
Hollywood
of
Henderson.
Hollywood Henderson.
He used to come to our house.
If you would talk to him, and he wrote about me in his book that the first time he ever saw Coach Landry cry is when he had to trade me.
He had to trade you because you were a black man playing a thinking man's position, and that wasn't acceptable yet.
There was nowhere in the world I was going to be able to stay at Dallas.
So you went to
San Diego. That's when I went to San Diego.
And you played middle linebacker.
Played middle linebacker. The day I arrived on like a Tuesday and I was practicing Wednesday, started the game Sunday. That's the abilities that God had given me.
How many? You eventually went to Seattle. How many years did you end up playing?
I played 4 years. I got my knee hurt.
Yeah.
And was the first time God allowed me to retire because I really didn't want to play pro football. I wanted to go to seminary.
Oh, really?
And I thought coming to Dallas, being drafted by Dallas was, I mean, that's a godsend.
Yeah.
Dallas is theological right here, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember going through my second year with Diego, and the coach came up to me one day, Coach Protho. He says, "So so football's not your first love, is it?" I go, "No, far from it." He says, "You're the type of guy that if God told you to quit, you would quit, wouldn't you?" I says, "Yeah, I would." And I wish he would, really, but I said, "But until he says no, I'm going to stay here." And he said, "Well, I got to have players I can trust." I says, "You can trust me as long as God said I can't quit. You have the best player, the best sold-out guy around." And so he says, "Well, I got to have guys I can trust." So he says, we didn't get along at all. And I was a Christian, and there were certain things I wouldn't do. And, I was an irritation to him. But starting, you can, with fans behind you can do a lot of things. And so when the expansion draft, he decided, oh, man, this would be a great way to get rid of him. So he tried to send me to Green Bay first, to send me to the cold. Brothers don't like the cold. And then he said, "Where would you like to go?" I said, "I would love to go to Tampa. That's closer to Alabama, be home, my family." He said, "Okay." I get a phone call. He traded me to Dallas. To Seattle.
Opposite direction.
Opposite direction.
There's a friend when you need one.
Because it's God. It was a God thing that he knew what he wanted to do with me in Seattle.
Did you see any of the racism start to abate in the 4 years you were in the NFL? Did the attitude shift at all?
Well, the attitude was the black players, just like in society, start saying, "We don't have to take this."
Yeah. Proving everybody wrong.
Right. We don't have to continue to self-abase ourselves to stay on the team. And that was some of the greatest things that you start seeing, because the same thing was happening with the civil rights movement, that people do not have to sit and put themselves down to be accepted.
Right.
And just because someone white says this don't mean that I got accepted.
Yeah.
And so you start seeing a lot of that. But bro, I'm going to tell you, it's more than one way to be prejudiced. Don't ever forget that. And for years, the struggle, like Seattle, I would rather be in the South and deal with people that I know don't like me openly than to be in a place like Seattle who is prejudiced on the second level. You see, down south, if a white man don't like me, he's going to tell me.
Yeah.
So I know we got a problem. So we can work on that problem if you know you got a problem.
Right.
In Seattle, they'll hug you, put their arm around you, tell you how great you are, and then give you a job they know you can't do. Fire you. So what's the difference if we're not going to be honest?
Yeah, right,
You know?
right. Do you think, I mean, in my lifetime, I know, top singer was Michael Jackson, top basketball player was Michael Jordan, top talk shows, Oprah Winfrey, African-American president. To me...
Why do you think we have a black president?
I can't... He's an individual that I find a little bit peculiar because I frankly don't understand why he was elected. Because
I can tell you exactly why he was elected.
A lot of white guilt might be part of it.
Ain't no mate in it.
You think that's...
This man was elected. Hey, if every black person in America and every Hispanic person in America voted for him, he couldn't win.
Yeah, right.
Who elected Obama? White people elected Obama.
Well, and that's that they're going to elect anybody if they're in the majority, if you get down to it. But back off of him for a second, because my point is not about him in particular.
And what I'm saying, it was white guilt. We're not over that yet.
Okay, but certainly some things have improved.
Of course, certain things have improved. But, there's certain things in my marriage I can improve with my wife, but it's still bad.
So you still think it's bad even today?
I think it's a lot worse than we want to admit, but it's not because of just whites today. The worst prejudice today is minorities. The worst prejudice you're going to run into is minority prejudice.
Between each other or towards whites?
Minority people who think that America owes them something.
Okay.
They're victims now.
Okay.
And that's the worst kind of prejudice.
Now, do you think it's directed towards whites, or is it directed towards other blacks or other
directed
minorities?
For anyone else who tries to make it without someone giving it to you. I don't care what color you are.
Okay.
I mean, just think about what they've said about people like Condoleezza Rice.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
First black Secretary of State.
Right.
First black Secretary of Defense.
Or Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas. Put him through the ringer, bruh. Put him through the ringer because he did not match up to the black dynamic. And he wasn't blaming everybody else for his failures, but getting down and working hard and making it regardless.
What's the solution here?
Solution is Jesus. There's no other solution. You can talk about passing new laws. You can talk about all kinds of programs. You can talk about getting parents to be better parents. I mean, all those things are good, but the heart has to change.
I know what you mean when you say Jesus is the answer, because I'm a believer. But somebody watching who is not a Christian and going, well, this interview just ended because he said the answer is Jesus. Yeah. What does that mean?
Let me tell you, if someone says, man, the interview is over, he mentioned Jesus, he just made another stupid decision, as far as I'm concerned. Tell me, what has worked for you? Have you found anything better to work than Jesus Christ to bring people together? Do you have any program that you've come up with that makes people come together without a false humility, without a false love, and has to pretend like everything's okay? Have you found anything other than Jesus in this world that has a tendency to change a man from his deepest hatred to a love, to make a black man who hated white people end up marrying a white woman? Have you ever found anything outside of Jesus that can bring worlds together, nationalities together, all the colors? Because the Bible is already cross-cultural. We just need to make sure that we follow it. And the Bible says Jesus is the answer. So he can say it's over. Just give me a better answer and I'll follow him. And until then, if he can't find a better answer, he needs to follow what I say. Give Jesus an opportunity to change his life or her life.
Well said, well stated. If someone wants to hear more from you, read some of your books, maybe listen to some sermons, what's your website?
My website is www.hutchpost.org.
Very good. Check it out. We'll get it on the screen.
HUTCHPOST.org.
Yeah. We'll put it right there so they can't mistake it.
You bet.
Do check him out. This guy's, there's a depth, there's more to him than you heard today, and I know you heard a lot. So check out Ken Hutcherson when he's on Life Today. That will be at lifetoday.org. And check out some of his books, listen to some of his sermons from his church, and certainly if you're in the Seattle area, Go check him out in person.
Come visit.
Yeah, come
You
visit.
may stay.
Good. Thanks for being with us.